You're watching Namaste Obama, a special broadcast on preparations that are underway for US President Barack Obama's India visit. Security issues aside, the Indian government is eyeing big takeaways in terms of strategic and business agreements.
Perhaps the most critical question was on the rapidly developing chemistry between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Obama. A question he answered with candor and pragmatism. I believe Prime Minister Narendra Modi has a clear vision of the big things he wants India to achieve. And I have been impressed with his energy and his readiness to address many of the barriers that have stood in the way to greater economic growth. Obama went on to stress why India and United States were natural partners in more than one sphere of the modern world. I firmly believe that the relationship between India and United States can be a defining partnership of the 21st century. We are natural partners. We are two democracies, two entrepreneurial societies. We are global leaders in innovation, science and technology. Given India's strategic location, we can advance our shared security and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific. President Obama also stressed why the US corporate sector's role in emerging India was the key. American companies are ready to help build infrastructure that will be the catalyst for the next generation of Indian growth. We can help Prime Minister Modi's efforts towards cleaner air, more water and more electricity, including under a civil nuclear agreement. With Obama coming for an unprecedented second visit to India, the obvious question was why he decided to accept the Republic Day invite. I would like to think that the stars are aligned to finally realize the vision I outlined in Parliament. India and America are true global partners. That's why I accepted the generous invitation to become the first US president to attend Republic Day as chief guest. I'm deeply honored and I look forward to joining President Mukherjee and Indian people in celebrating the 65th anniversary of the Constitution. Significantly, President Obama also said how a revamped United Nations should recognize India's emerging global role. I pushed for elevating the role of the G20 to give emerging economies, including India, a greater voice in global economic decision-making. And that's why I believe that a reformed United Nations Security Council should include India as a permanent member. President Obama also stated in unambiguous terms that Pakistan needs to deliver on containing terror. I have made it clear that even as the United States works with Pakistan to meet the threat of terror, safe havens within Pakistan are not acceptable, and those behind the Mumbai terror attacks must face justice. Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Repeated warnings coming in from Washington to Islamabad asking it to rein in its terror elements during Obama's India visit. In fact, in an exclusive interview to the India Today group, Obama also said that safe havens for terror in Pakistan are unacceptable. A statement also coming in from the White House that the US values anti-terror cooperation with India.
New Delhi, preparing for the big Obama visit. A sanitized capital over the next week and a half. India beefing up security for its Republic Day guest. But like India, the United States knows that the threat lies not from within India, but from India's neighbor.
Senior American leaders, military leaders and intelligence chiefs have actually said that the Haqqani group is an arm of the ISI. So they have been very candid and frank about it. But it doesn't get translated into any policy of sanctioning Pakistan effectively or putting the fear of God in Pakistan, that the manner in which United States treats Iran or even now Russia and President Putin, that Pakistan could get the same bitter medicine, but they don't do that.
This frustration on part of India continues to rise. In the run-up to President Obama's visit, the army has revealed that terrorists from across the border are preparing to hit soft targets like schools. 200 terrorists are believed to be waiting to infiltrate into India from 36 launch pads. and the terror infrastructure across the border is active and is being supported by the establishment. This despite being the United States' ally in the fight against terror.
Pakistan has been taking US assistance also for its armed forces, but it's the very same Pakistan army that also aids and abets terrorism from across the border, which has resulted in actually loss of US soldiers' lives in Afghanistan. And so United States knows very well the dilemma that it faces in dealing with Pakistan, and it's a similar dilemma that we face from India.
There is a tremendous quantum of anger in Washington today, and there is a very strong lobby that is simply looking for an excuse to take action against Pakistan. But the dominant or the prevailing policy remains a very, very soft kid gloves kind of approach to Pakistan.
India and United States are now strategic partners, but will that mean a change of policy towards Pakistan? Perhaps not. So when John Kerry visits India for the vibrant Gujarat summit, he also visits Pakistan. And as Obama prepares to come to India, he talks over the phone with Nawaz Sharif, clearly indicating that the two may be dehyphenated, but a parallel policy continues.
Even though the US has openly started to reprimand Pakistan over the issue of terror, it continues to provide aid to the country, much to the chagrin of India. But India fully well realizes that US's policy towards Pakistan and India is determined by its own national interest. And so the country will continue to play a balancing act between the two neighbors. With Smita Sharma in Delhi, this is Maha Siddiqui for Headlines Today.
Defence and strategic partnership is set to top the agenda when US President Barack Obama meets Narendra Modi in New Delhi. As chief guest of the Republic Day parade, Obama will witness India's military might. Experts also say that military engagements between the two countries are likely to increase post the visit. Here's a report.
The United States has already overtaken Russia as India's largest defence supplier in the past 3 years. Numbers aside, it's the presence of this hardware in India's armoury that bears evidence to this fact. And this relationship is all set to be deepened further in the coming days.
You see, if you are referring to an agreement which was already 10 years ago, there's an agreement which has been in place for 10 years. There was an agreement between Prime Minister and President Obama that it will be renewed.
Though neither India nor the US are commenting on specifics when it comes to agreements, the Defence Trade and Technology Initiative, or DTTI, expected to be inked soon, will be a big boost to Make in India. Between 2009 and 2013, India's defence purchases from the US crossed $5.74 billion. This included the purchase of 40 Harpoon anti-ship missiles, 10 C-17 Globemaster III aircraft, and 6 additional Super Hercules transport aircraft. India is now looking at more big purchases of over $8 billion and is ready to loosen its purse strings if the US is willing to bend a little. That is, allow co-production and transfer of technology for domestic manufacture instead of just outright sale. Make in India tops the Modi government's agenda.
Basically, there are 4 focus areas. One is trade and investments. Quite clearly, Mr. Modi's priority is to get American assistance for India's economic growth. And he has certain ideas, the Make in India program, his idea about digital India, the bullet trains, smart cities, cleaning the rivers.
The problems are plenty though, from rigid technology control regimes to slow capacity building to intake of technology and systems. But the top-level engagement in Delhi is a big move to get the forces aligned in the right direction. With Gaurav Sawant in Delhi, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
It's for the first time in 64 years that a US president will be attending the Republic Day parade as chief guest. Now, Barack Obama is in the last few months of his presidency and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is just beginning his innings. Is this visit then merely a grand photo opportunity, or can India expect some big takeaways? Here's a report.
Barack Obama, president of the world's superpower, will be in India after a gap of 4 years. It is rare, though, for an American president to visit a country twice in office. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in a surprise move, invited Obama as chief guest for the 2015 Republic Day celebrations, a first for a US president. White House responded with a yes, this following Modi's successful 2014 September US visit, where Modi and Obama agreed on a Chale Saath Saath vision.
He's not waiting for the bureaucracy, he's not waiting for your parliament to give him a green light. The fact that he's invited the president on your Republic Day symbolizes in many ways that this is someone who's willing to break the mold. And I think that represents a real difference in India and potentially, as a result, in the US-Indian relationship.
US is today one of India's closest strategic partners, but there is much greater scope for commerce and defense and nuclear trade. And experts suggest that Narendra Modi is redefining the dynamics of this relationship, picking it up from where Manmohan Singh left it at the end of UPA 1.
Secretary of State Kerry recently said both come from similar backgrounds. They are outsiders to the corridors of power in both within the Beltway in Washington, D.C. and also in New Delhi. And to that extent, they have a similar trajectory that they have followed. Prime Minister Modi went to United States. He went there basically to take the measure of how he would be received, how Indian interests would be heard of, and to take stock of the situation.
It was in May 1998 that following the Pokhran blast, the Democrats at the Capitol Hill, led by Bill Clinton, imposed economic sanctions against India. Traditionally, Republicans have meant better business for New Delhi. But over the years, Indo-US relations have found a bipartisan support across DC. And now redefining this relationship is an Indian Prime Minister who till not very long ago faced an entry ban into the US and whom Obama recently called a man of action.
Given India's recent tough position on WTO and climate change issues, it is in the US interest to leverage the rise of Modi. And while India is key to America's Asian pivot rebalance, the US card would be handy for New Delhi to use against a formidable China. In New Delhi with Smita Sharma, Bureau Report, headlines today.
The civil nuclear deal between India and the United States might turn out to be the elephant in the room when Barack Obama meets Narendra Modi in New Delhi. 6 years after the agreement was first signed, there has been no forward movement in terms of nuclear trade. Here's a look at the roadblocks and challenges that the deal faces.
The Indo-US Civil Nuclear Agreement signed in 2008 towards the end of George Bush's presidency was a historic achievement of the Manmohan Singh government. But more than 6 years down the line, bilateral relations may be on a high, but nuclear trade is yet to kick off between the two countries, leading to much heartburn in Washington, D.C.
There is frustration over the nuclear agreement, both in the narrow sense that it itself hasn't happened, but more broadly that it hasn't led to the breakthrough in US-Indian relations that many people either predicted or certainly hoped for. That said, what's really new now is your Prime Minister.
The tough Indian nuclear liability law essentially allows suppliers to be held liable for compensation in the wake of any Bhopal-like tragedy. It, however, limits the liability to $300 million. Companies argue that international norms put the onus of safety on the operator, not the suppliers of equipment. Their concern emanating from two controversial clauses. Section 17, which allows operators to sue the manufacturers and suppliers, and Section 46, which also allows civil liability claims to be brought against the operator and suppliers.
Now, this provision is contrary to the international treaty regime, and so it has created a lot of consternation for suppliers, both Indian as well as foreign.
The nuclear impasse stopped Modi's discussions with Obama in Washington last year and has been part of talks at various levels since. Sources say that India has proposed an insurance pool to limit the supplier's liability. This pool would include the 4 public sector unit insurers.
The fact is that the Russian companies, Rosatom, can get a sovereign guarantee from their government. So even if they have to insure for a higher amount, they have the backing of a sovereign guarantee from their government. The American companies, which are now essentially Japanese companies, do not have that.
But sources say that American companies still find this proposed insurance pool inadequate. On the other hand, Indian critics say any rollback on the clauses would amount to dilution of the act.
When in opposition, the BJP along with the left had stiffly protested the UPA's attempts at any dilution of the domestic legislation. And the party now does not have adequate numbers in the upper house to change any provision it then forced through the parliamentary committees. So clearly a tricky question for the Modi government to show that it means business even while protecting national interest. In New Delhi, this is Smita Sharma for Headlines Today.
The Obamas will have a lot to take with them when they return to the US from India. Headlines Today's Pratibha Raman reports on how artisans are preparing special gifts in Chennapatna.
Talented artisans of the toy town of Karnataka, Chennapatna, 60 kilometers from Bengaluru, are giving the finishing touches to American President Barack Obama's gifts. These toys will be presented by the Karnataka government to India's chief guest on Republic Day.
ಶ್ವೇತಭವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಮುಂದಿನ ಗಣರಾಜ್ಯೋತ್ಸವ ದಿನ ಒಬಾಮಾ ಅವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾರತಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಮಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಒಂದು ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಸ್ತಬ್ಧ ಚಿತ್ರ ನಮ್ಮ ಚನ್ನಪಟ್ಟಣದ ಗೊಂಬೆಯನ್ನ ಸ್ತಬ್ಧ ಚಿತ್ರವಾಗಿ ಮೆರವಣಿಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಒಂದು ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಅದು ಸಂತೋಷದ ವಿಚಾರ.
Chennapatna's toys are called lacquer toys since they use lac, and the 2,000 artisans are provided marketing support by the Karnataka Handicrafts Development Corporation. The gift, the government believes, would be the best advertisement for the Make in India slogan. With Pratibha Raman, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
While all eyes will be on the two world leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Barack Obama, cameras will also be closely following Michelle Obama for her style statement during her second visit to the country. Here's a special report.
Chic, casual, colorful. That's the First Lady of the United States, also known as FLOTUS in the US media. Michelle Obama's style quotient has made headlines since 2009 and also redefined the way First Ladies dress. She sends cameras into a tizzy and social media platforms on an overdrive whenever she steps out in her sartorial best.
She's casual, she's fun, she uses a lot of color, she uses a lot of print, and I think in that she's different from most of the other First Ladies we've seen before. She's also far more casual.
Often compared to another US First Lady, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, for her dressing sense, Michelle Obama's choice of clothes during her state visit to India in 2010 was conservative and paid tribute to American designers of Indian origin like Ranjana Khan and Rachel Roy. Going by her choice of clothes for other state visits and goodwill visits in the past to countries like Mexico, Northern Ireland, Germany, South Africa and China, the US First Lady might just decide to don clothes which exude soft power for her second trip to India.
I think what she does very well is like a soft power. So she presents a very accessible face of the Obamas to the world. She's using her clothes and to represent the country, to tell people that, you know what, we are like you, we love you, we respect you, respect your traditions. And this is all fabulous subliminal messaging that she uses with her clothes.
Mrs. O has a knack for wearing high street fashion and couture with equal ease. But the question on everyone's mind, will she don the 6-yard wonder on her second trip to India? In New Delhi, Lasipriya Sundaram for Headlines Today.
Expectations from the US President's India visit are extremely high. Here's hoping that the two world leaders, Modi and Obama, are able to script a new chapter in Indo-US ties. That's all we could pack into our special broadcast. Namaste Obama.